morning, Impo, and good morning to your listeners. I think World Malaria Day is always important to highlight the plight of the millions that suffer from malaria and the hundreds of thousands that die from malaria. But I think this year is particularly important for two reasons. Firstly, I think that the awareness of malaria is very, very important to draw attention to when the COVID pandemic is consuming, understandably, everybody's attention. And that doesn't stop people from dying from malaria. And in fact, we fear an increase in malaria as a result of the COVID pandemic. So it's really important to draw that attention. And secondly, I think when people are frustrated at that things aren't better, it's very good to look back and see how much gain has been made since in the last 2 decades.
You speak about COVID-19 and the fears around an increase in deaths in malaria. Let's talk about now perhaps the similarities between some of the symptoms of COVID-19 and malaria and how one can distinguish between the two.
It's difficult to distinguish. There are a lot of overlapping symptoms. Both cause fever, both cause rigors, weakness, tiredness, and in severe forms, shortness of breath and need for hospitalization and risk of death. There are a few differences, but they don't occur in everyone. So the only way we know about the differences is if people get tested for both malaria and COVID. And of course, at the time of a pandemic, one can test positive for both and need treatment for both. So the urgent thing is for people to seek those tests within 24 hours of starting symptoms. That gives us enough time to diagnose and treat someone for malaria and stop them progressing to severe malaria. And of course, that allows one to help contain the COVID pandemic as well.
94% of malaria cases are on the African continent. When it comes to perhaps dividing the regions and the vulnerability and exposure to malaria, where are we looking at on the map?
So you mentioned South Africa. Most of South Africa is malaria free, but unfortunately we still have about 5 million people in the northeastern sections of South Africa, northern Limpopo, eastern Mpumalanga, and northern KwaZulu-Natal, that are exposed to malaria. The risk gets higher as we head north in sub-Saharan Africa, although great strides have been made in some of the neighboring countries. And of course, north of the Sahara, there's a much lower risk of malaria, and those are the countries that are accelerating fastest towards elimination.
And that forms a great part of your work, elimination and achieving certain targets. Where are you standing?
So we've made great progress since 2020, 88% reduction in cases, a 92% reduction in malaria deaths. But what we want is no local malaria transmission. And of course, unless you're an island with unlimited resources and no competing priorities, that's always going to be hard work and take some time. So we're pleased with the progress that has been made. We've learned from the periods when things have got worse. And the hope is that within 5 years, we would have achieved that target piece by piece, hopefully starting with northern KwaZulu-Natal.
And, we are also getting an increase in the number of cases when it comes to COVID-19, a lot of concern there and the possibility of a third wave should there not be sufficient and speedy access to a vaccination program being rolled out efficiently. When it comes to finding a balance between the two, I mean, earlier you spoke about concerns about an increase in malaria deaths and those fears being a reality. What are some of the solutions?
Well, the media, you are part of the